This is the DIY version of the machine we all know and love as the 45-degree hyperextension. Now to set this up, you're obviously going to need some equipment. Works well on a half rack too. You're going to need a barbell set up somewhere, I'm going to say just below waistline, yeah? Then you can set this up in the same way you would a hyperextension. You can work spinal extension, you can work hip extension, you can work hamstrings, you can work glutes. All the same variations applied, the setup is just slightly different. Now what I will say is that always make sure you're leaning into the rig, yeah? For example, in this setup with my J hook on this side, I wouldn't want to come in from the other side because guess what? That's going to be easy to fall out. But if I'm leaning into the rig, this isn't going to go anywhere and I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm going to be super stable and I can focus on the structures that I'm trying to work. So for this, say I'm working the hamstrings. I'm going to step away from the hyper a little bit or the barbell. Then I'm going to lean into it. Obviously, barbell pad helps for comfort. Then I'm going to walk my feet in forward a little bit to kind of lock myself in place. It's going to make more sense when I fold forward. Now, if I'm working the hamstrings here, I want to make sure that my upper back doesn't move. So I'm actually going to crunch in a little bit and maintain this spinal flexion. It looks wrong, but as long as I am moving exclusively from the hamstrings like so, it doesn't really matter. And I'd prefer that, for example, if I'm isolating the hamstrings, to do it this as opposed to this. Not that that top part's bad, but then you just have to recognize that you're also getting your erectors in play. Again, not a bad thing if that's what you're after, but if you just want the hamstrings and isolate those alone, I prefer to have the spine rounded. So, with that said, lean into the bar. Round your upper back, let yourself fold over the bar. Quads are tight, and from here, contract your hamstrings to pull your torso up. Gently lower by letting go of that tension through the hammies. And then simply coming up, control down, contract up, control down, contract up, control down, yeah? This can also be done with a weight. So you can simply cradle the weight, whether that's a dumbbell, plate, yeah? I prefer this here. You can also do this. Either work. So, setup is the same. I'm going to lean into that barbell. Feet can be a little bit closer if I want a little bit more hammies. Cradling the weight, ribs in, rounded spine, feet are locked in, letting myself fold forward, hamstrings to come up. And I like to think of trying to maintain or encourage a posterior pelvic tilt as I do this to get even more out of the hamstrings. Yeah? The rep range for this, totally up to you. I like to work that 10 to 20 rep range, yeah? Boom. Now, say I wanted to get more into the glutes. We could do the same thing by simply turning the feet out, falling forward. The knees could be slightly soft with this, doesn't have to be locked out. We're still rounded through the spine, and then we do the exact same thing. And not only do I like to cue posterior pelvic tilt, but I like to cue pushing my hip into the bar as I'm trying to lift. And that is your DIY 45-degree hyper. Give this one a go.